my Twitter.
Right, we're going live now. You might need to click a button.
A nice, chill
Your link.
interview with a bloke in Australia. Do you guys call yourselves bloke?
Yeah, that's a term.
I have now.
I'll just click that off. And I think this is the link. It's funny when I watched back the last one, I'm thinking I've got to get this more professional at the start. I'm so used to going live straight away to Facebook. And still learning the ropes on YouTube. So I apologize, people that are watching already. I can see there's a few.
Oh, sometimes people enjoy seeing the back.
Yeah.
The behind the scenes stuff.
I enjoy that with yours too, actually.
Yeah, I try to include
when you
that.
start, you got your people walking by and you're getting your whiteboard or whatever ready, and
and even after too, I'll talk a little bit, but I try to show like from start to end because I wanted people to see that this was a real conversation. It wasn't an actor. It wasn't a setup,
Yes, you can see them coming in and
right, exactly. Start to end.
I was saying there's a guy.
And your podcast is Free Thinkers International.
Free Thinkers International.
Are you on Twitter?
No, no. But we will be.
What's wrong with you? You think you're international?
And those watching, apologize for this. I'll just.
Is there a particular hashtag you want to see in here?
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm just going to see if this is your email. I might just email you.
Oh, no. Can you just put it in the Zoom chat? Or is it too hard for you to do that?
No, I can do that. That is a much easier idea.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, cool. Cool.
And we'll just check.
Let me tweet that out. Was there a hashtag you wanted?
We could just.
I'll put it on the Discord too. I'll put it everywhere. Put it on Discord, like people in Discord.
You make a hashtag and.
I didn't put a hashtag on it.
Hashtag.
Announcements, and then I put it in the video.
Free Thinkers International. There's a few Free Thinkers International, but no one booked the .com. So I thought, there we go. Okay. So we've got a bunch of people watching from the link there.
Where's most of your audience at?
I'm not really 100% sure. It's smattering all over, and a real good mix of all kind of demographics.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
You have a lot of females watching your stuff because we have a lot more males in street epistemology than female.
They seem to be more drawn to it, don't they? Right, okay. It's running on all my platforms now.
Yeah, I think I shared it in like 3 places. Okay, so hopefully get some watchers here.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate
if people comment on the video, are you able to see that and take questions and stuff?
Yeah, I've got a monitor on the side here, and I've got it up on the other screen. So yeah, I should be able to see some questions. I can definitely see. I should be able to see chats there. Yep.
Okay.
And there was, just while we're waiting, there was a guy, I think he used to call himself the Angry Atheist, maybe, and he'd get in people's faces and he'd do a street epistemology style, but really from a very angry kind of perspective, and he was often talking to JWs on the corner of the streets of whatever city he was in.
Did he ride up on a bike?
Yes, that's the one. And he would have it, I think, he'd have it just around his chest maybe, and he seemed to be everywhere, and now I haven't seen him anywhere. he would just get angry at people. But I still really enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah, I would watch some of them too. Of course, I was cringing because that's not the approach that I use. And I'd always get a kick because I'd look in the comments. People say, "Have you heard about street epistemology? You should try it." And he would usually respond, "Yeah, I've heard of it, but it's not my style," or something.
Yeah. Okay.
That guy actually showed up at a talk that I gave in California in 2015,
Oh,
and we
wow.
talked a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can see the comments there. People are joining.
Oh, cool. Cool. Hello, people.
So, just give another 10 seconds. What I often do is, often in the last 2 times, is re-edit it and upload it again as a slightly chopping off all these beginning bits, you know.
Oh, really? Oh, that's okay. I kind of like the extra stuff.
I keep the one up live as well, but if people just want a snappy version. But yeah, I like.
Sure.
Well, I'll do a little pause for an edit break that I can see later. Hello and welcome to another Freethinkers International conversation, interview, podcast, vlogcast, YouTube, Facebook. My very special guest today is Anthony Magnabosco. Great to have you today here, Anthony. How are you?
You're doing fine, Peter. Yourself?
I'm terrific. It's 1 a.m. in the morning here, but that's usually when I kind of go to bed anyway, around that time.
Me too. I usually stay up pretty late and go to bed about that time. I'm trying to go to bed earlier, but I just can't.
Yeah, natural night owl by the sounds.
Yeah.
What time is it there now?
It is 9:19 in the morning.
Oh, okay. So the day is ahead of you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm very excited that you're here and on the program and doing an interview with me. As I said off air, I'm a big fan of yours, and I think I've logged hundreds of hours of watching your content. And in the pantheon of free thinkers, skeptics, and atheists that are providing platforms and are influencing other people with their content, there is such a wide variety of styles of sharing their message. And I love Matt Dillahunty with his real fiery kind of in-your-face, angry, stops people from talking. I love it. And then just as effective is your style, which is the street epistemology and the very civil, calm approach. And I think in many ways the calm approach can sink a little bit deeper because people are willing to engage a bit longer. And for those that don't really know the term street epistemology, can you perhaps give us a little definition?
Of course. Yes. It's always a confusing term. Maybe I'll start with what people usually get confused by when they hear the word street epistemology. They tend to think that we're going out on the street and there's maybe a proselytization or evangelism component to it, but that's not really the case. And then the epistemology part tends to give people the impression that it's this really academic thing. But honestly, it's an unfortunate term for a technique for talking with people that you know, people that are not experts necessarily in the topics that you're exploring, to ask them to explain how they became convinced that what they think is true is true.
Yeah.
And you do it in a very calm, respectful manner, ideally, which tends to open people up, build trust, so that it allows you to dig really deeply. So you're not focused on the claim that they're making or necessarily their reasoning. But it's the method that they're using to verify their reasons. That's what the exploration is. That's the epistemology part of it, is what method are you using to tell that your reasons are good enough to think that that's true? And when you make it a collaborative process and you focus on their method as opposed to the claim, that tends to open people up even more to reflectful thinking. And that's really what we're hoping to get to is encouraging people to think about their thoughts. That sort of guided metacognition is a term that we're starting to use now to describe what street epistemology is.
Thinking about what you're thinking about.
Exactly. How often do we do that?
Yeah.
I don't think people do that all that much.
Yeah.
But it seems to work out better when somebody is facilitating it, as
Yeah.
opposed to just saying, hey, learn SE and you can do it on your own claims. Well, you could, and I do, but it seems to be far more effective if there's a guide along in the process to really kind of hold your feet to the fire a little bit, but in a
Yeah.
very gentle way.
Were you always good at listening? Have you always been a good listener? Because you often, like one of the important things that I'm trying to learn to do in a better way is allowing people to finish something and then not necessarily jumping in with the next thing. I've heard you say something to someone and then you pause and they think about it and you just wait and then they come out with something even deeper. Was that a natural thing for you? Because it's not something that humans kind of come by naturally in many ways.
It wasn't a natural thing. It was almost by necessity, or something that I've learned.
Right.
People told me, or maybe I read, when somebody says something, give them the space to process it.
Mm,
If they're thinking about it, let them think about it and don't interrupt them.
mm,
So that was more of a learned thing. I don't think I think I was just as bad as everybody else in that regard, maybe, but it was a learned thing. And once you start realizing the benefit of doing it, of allowing the person to process their thoughts and staying out of their way, then it just sort of reinforces the behavior and then it becomes second nature. But it's still hard. Like when you're talking, I even noticed this morning before the show. You were talking and talking, and I was like, I wanted to jump in to interrupt to say something because you were saying interesting things, but I was really resisting the urge.
yeah, so maybe it is a human condition and we have to learn. I interviewed my wife on another podcast I've got, um, called Arts News TV, and she was in the house and I'm out here in the studio. And she said, "I felt like we got on a lot better. You listened to me." so, so I said to her, "Let's just meet every day for a cup of tea over the over Zoom." Might be fun.
Would that be funny if like your relationship could improve if you just did that like for an hour every week or something?
Yeah, I just put my interview cap on and works a lot better.
Yeah.
Were you tell us a little bit about you, Anthony, from a young boy? Like, were you raised in a religious environment? What's your story briefly there?
Raised religious, Catholic home, Italian neighborhood, oldest of four. Started questioning at a young age, was discouraged from it. But I think the discouragement of my curiosity resulted in anxiety as I look back on it now. I was a pretty anxious kid, and I think I carried a lot of that into my adulthood. But started got married, had a few kids, started looking at my children. What do I want to teach them? What kind of adults am I hoping that they grow up to be? So that kind of focuses, you start thinking about your own childhood and what kind of adults you want them to be. And then I discovered the atheist movement here in the United States, and the aggressive approach really appealed to me. And I started using it with family and friends. That damaged a lot of relationships. And then I found this technique of street epistemology, which has actually improved relationships. And I
Mm,
don't think I'm ever going to go back to a debate style. I can't see myself ever debating with people again.
mm,
I watch it. To this day, I watch it online, and I just shake my head thinking
mm.
they're not getting through to that person. Now they may be reaching people who are observing those talks. So
Yeah.
I still see the value in it, but as far as an engagement technique, but that's essentially my journey. And my kids are getting older. They're in the process of transitioning to college and then eventually moving out of the house, which is going to free me up for more
Mm.
time to focus on this endeavor.
One thing I've noticed in the free thinking community, two big things stand out to me. One, if you come out as being a skeptic or agnostic or atheist, there's a lot of ostracism. Um, the you know, and there's a lot of kind of nastiness that can come out from usually from Christians.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I want to chat a little bit about later, about maybe ways you think, because I know people that are watching, there's people that are not out, and they've chatted to me about ways of, addressing that and feeling safer and what to do. And the other thing I've noticed is that there's not a lot of material out there for young kids. I started a bit late in life. I've got a 7-year-old and another little daughter that just turned 9. And I was trying to find some things on YouTube the other night for them, and it was really difficult to find.
Really?
And when I chatted to Annie Laurie Gaylor the other week, she sent me a bunch of links, which was great. Really good resources there from Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Oh, good.
So I'm interested in you sharing a bit of thoughts on how you can raise kids with the ability to have rational thinking. Or were your kids a bit older by the time you kind of started to get into the critical thought process?
Oh, wow. My kids were probably in their tens, like in the teen, no, maybe younger. I don't know, between 9 and 10, maybe, when I started getting into the whole activism thing.
Right.
But even before then, I would say we just kind of treated them as young adults. If we didn't, here's one thing that we didn't do, is we didn't try to scare them with this idea of monsters. I distinctly remember observing a family member interacting with their kids, and the kids were running ahead of them. And one of them started climbing up the staircase, and the mom said, "Don't go up there. Monsters will get you."
Right.
And I remember hearing that story and being like, just, why are you trying to control your kids with fear? And it was something that I never wanted to do with my kids. So we were always very direct with them. When the fish in the pond died because I put too much chemicals in there, like that was a learning moment. We didn't make up a story or get new fish to cover that up. We want them to see the reality of the situation.
Yeah. Kind of nestling reality with love and creativity. We'll come to it later, because I am interested in sharing ideas of how people can kind of brace themselves for some of what they might expect if they're a bit more open about their non-belief. So we'll come back to that. But I'm interested in that moment where you kind of fell in love with street epistemology. Was there a moment, or was it just a gradual kind of awakening? Like for me, the moment was seeing your stuff. I loved the Matt Dillahunty. I loved the critical thinking, the logic, the rational thinking. I loved all the debates I'd been seeing, and Christopher Hitchens, and I loved that stuff. But when I watched the very first one of yours, I think you were being interviewed by Matt Dillahunty, and then I went and watched something, and I thought, whoa, this is different. This matches my kind of personality as well, a bit more laid back. And I like the idea of being civil and having conversations. So for me, ironically, and a real pleasure to interview you, you were that moment for me to go, right, this is something I want to explore. So if anyone ever asks me in an interview, what was that moment? I'll be saying, well, Anthony Magnabosco switched the light on for me. Was there a light turning on moment for you?
I'm very flattered that you said that. Thank you. So there was a moment. I do remember when I first started going out and talking to the street preachers, I was still using the counter apologetics, but I was trying to use street epistemology with them. I wanted to ask them questions and have them explore how they became convinced.
Okay.
Rather than trying to convince them. So that was my entry into SE. But the moment that I fell in love with it, I guess you could say, or to put it a better way, like falling in love with it makes me worry that I could become so enamored with it that I'm not thinking about it critically, because if it was harmful or not working, then I'm going to just throw it to the curb. So I'm not irrationally tied to it. But I do remember a moment when I was interviewing this young woman on a college campus. Her name is Michaela, Makayla. I had 2 talks with her, and she was going on about how she was 100% sure God was real. And then we had a second conversation where she lowered her confidence because she was reflecting. In the meantime, from the first conversation to the second, there was an event in between where she was sitting in church thinking about the first talk. do I have a good reason for thinking that this is true? Is this any different than the tooth fairy or something? And then I asked her, I asked her if the two conversations would have any impact on how she would eventually decide to raise her family and have kids and what she would teach them. And she said that it would, that she wants to teach them the truth of the matter and not something that's fake. And that was the moment, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Seeing the power of it. Yeah. Another thing I have enjoyed about this process and watching your interviews as well is part of me was thinking, is this people trying to find a gotcha moment and then later on huddling together with a kind of analysis and a smug and you, Jen, like we all love those gotcha moments, but not in that smug kind of way. And I can certainly with all the programs you do when you've watched them through, you can tell that you are genuinely interested in learning about what makes people tick and what that thought process is. So there's a nice gentleness to it, but as I said to you off air, it's surgical. It's so precise as well. It's it really cuts to the chase.
There is an equivalent of a gotcha moment in an SE talk, though. And that are those moments when you ask a question or something happens to prompt your interviewee to stop and think. And it's those moments, we call it aporia. It's that moment of wonder where they're thinking like, oh man, why do I think that?
Yes.
When I see somebody thinking about their thoughts, it's an extremely vulnerable moment for them, and a very brave moment for them too. So that's really cool to see. And I'm kicking myself because I just gave a talk to the Dutch Skeptics Society this past weekend, and I showed 2 video clips. One, a talk with a person who thought karma was real, and another talk with somebody who was going on about the vaccines. And in my haste to get through the presentation, I neglected to show the final clip of each of those instances that shows the moment of, wow, you've really got me thinking here. Okay. So I'm going to take that footage and put it on my YouTube channel and include those clips so that audience could see those, because I think that really helps sell SE. It really shows it. Yeah. It shows the power of it, I think.
And I'll add your link as well to your YouTube channel after as well in the post, and people can go and look that up as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'm trying to get my hands on the footage, and as soon as I get it, I can edit that and put it on my channel.
Talking about footage, I wanted to just give an example for the minority of people that may not have heard your material. I'll just play a short bit, and I want to talk a bit about the follow-up to this, because this follows on to a bit of this guy had a gotcha moment in the good sense of the word, and had some big changes. So we'll watch a little bit of that. Can you see that? Did that come up on the screen there all right for you?
Yeah. Boy, I got really dark all of a sudden. And now I'm realizing how much light actually comes off my monitor to hit my face.
Right, but
yeah, there we go. Yeah, I see.
Ah, good.
It seems like both of you believe in God, you're 100%, and the majority of it is really resting on faith. It's this unhindered belief despite opposing viewpoints, or trusting that he will do what he says. Right. Is faith as a process for arriving at something to be true with 100% certainty the most reliable way to get to that point?
Reliable in what sense, I guess?
Reliable to the point where you would be 100% certain that it was true.
I guess the best way to put it is, faith is such a personal thing. So it's going to be different for everybody. If it's 100% true to you, then I think you have every right to believe that. Because ultimately, there's only so much we can do to prove the existence of God or of any religion, really.
Okay. Faith could be different for everyone.
I think what he's trying to get at is no matter what you believe, you have to have a certain amount of faith to believe in that. So if you believe in, like, for instance, the Big Bang, or if you believe in something else, you have to have faith that that thing is happening. So I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. Does faith, unhindered belief despite opposing viewpoints, or trusting that he's going to do what he says, does faith always lead a person to the same God?
It should. People are people, and they can misinterpret things.
Right.
And you have people like Joseph Smith and other religions that take, I would say, you just misinterpret what's being given to them.
Yeah.
But they're using faith, and I've literally had conversations with people that use faith to get to completely different religions, and we would probably all agree that they have a right to believe in whatever they want. Like, I would literally, fight in a war and die to protect your belief and their belief. Their right to believe in whatever they want.
Right.
However, they all, whether I'm talking to a Hindu that believes Vishnu is the one true God, or those two Muslim women that walk by that use faith to know that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse and Allah is the one true God. Like, when I have these conversations, it almost always comes down to faith.
Right.
So I'll ask again, do you believe that faith is a reliable method to getting to your God, when you would recognize that people can use faith to come to all sorts of different conclusions?
I guess in response to that, I would ask, what other quality or character could you use to get to the same? Like, what else do we have?
October of 2015. Damn.
Yeah.
That was a little rough back then.
No, I thought you nailed it, and
Really?
it's interesting because I want to play the next bit in a little while, where I'll let you share what happens there, but it makes that last question that you posed to him about, the people with the Muslim faith, isn't their faith as realistic to them as yours, and isn't it justifiable? Isn't it as easy to justify faith to suit any belief and confirm any belief? And you can, just watching his face, knowing what happened next, then was interesting to watch back again today. So tell us a little bit about what was happening there. And I really like that bit that you said, it seems to you that it always comes back to faith. That's it's like a sales funnel for all of street epistemology. It comes to, well, I can't answer really, so it's about faith, and then it's about a personal feeling, and then you'll explain, but what about demonstrating this for others? And the guy on the right, he rebounded with his answers, but Dan was starting to kind of go, So tell us a little bit about that process and your thoughts on getting to that faith moment.
So that clip was preceded probably by another 20 minutes of discussion. So it could be tempting to think that, every SE conversation about God or supernatural claims comes down to faith. It's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
And it could be a liability to think of it that way. So I would caution you and your viewers not to just assume that it always comes down to faith. But for religious claims, it does seem that faith is a component for a lot of people, but you can't assume. So I don't approach my conversations where I'm using SE with those assumptions. I'm prepared if it comes up, but I'm not guiding them there, and I'm not expecting to go there. But if they go there, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good tip.
The other thing is that I was interviewing two people in that moment, which is incredibly difficult. And I don't know if I would actually advise people to talk to two people simultaneously about the same claim, because their reasoning and their methodology for being sure is going to be different. And the answer that one person gives is more than likely going to influence the other ones. I noticed that there was even some sentence finishing by the other person.
Yeah.
It's a very muddled way to do SE in hindsight. I wouldn't really advise it. Now, if one of them was quiet and observing me interview the one person, and then we switched, and I started interviewing the other, I think that would probably be really effective. But we identified their claim. And one thing you'll notice is that I was working off of their definitions of the word faith, and each of them had different definitions, which made it very challenging.
Yeah.
So it was a little muddled because I think I was viewing this in terms of a method that they were using to confirm their claim.
Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure both of them were using it in that way, to be completely fair to them. So you have to be very careful about the words people use and how you're interpreting them. That's the benefit of repeating it back.
Yeah.
If I understand what you're saying, you're defining this word in this way. Is that correct? Because the act of you repeating it back could confirm that you're actually right, or maybe you've mistaken your interpretation of what they mean by those words. So going slow and methodical is great. And then you notice that I did what we call an outsider test. Once you identify a reason or a method, you can say, if somebody were to use that same reason or method and they think something completely opposite to you is true, what might that say about that reason or method? If somebody can use those and come to a competing conclusion, that's a really wonderful question to help somebody think about their belief tower and if it's reliable or not.
Tell us a little bit about what happened later. You received an email or a tweet from Dan, and bring that up to current time too with what Dan's doing. I didn't
we should
put two together till we chatted offline.
I was going to say we should point out that you didn't realize at the time that that's the same person who ended up leaving his religion and started a show with the ACA called Truth Wanted, which is a great show. And they just had their Halloween episode this past weekend, and he's wearing a jack-o'-lantern shirt. I noticed. It's pretty funny. So he had a really wonderful journey. We met again. I did a follow-up interview. It's not like that one interview just changed everything for him. I think he would admit, but it was probably like a stepping stone in his journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I've often wondered, and it was interesting that today, as I was just watching some of your stuff, that came up, kind of answering my question. I've often wondered how much follow-up you get and how many people go, whoa, hang on, and do make quite a big change in their lives. And for him, there would have been moments that led up to it, but that style of questioning, I'm sure, was almost a tipping point moment for him.
Well, think about it. If I was arguing with those young men and ridiculing them on their position, they probably would have not really thought much about their own position, but how rude I was and how weak my arguments were.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would have been able to find apologetics to comfort them in their current positions.
Yeah.
But when you explore somebody's claim in that manner, where you're trying to help them reveal to you and to themselves how they got there, and then you leave them alone to process it, that's where the growth can potentially happen.
I think another important technique you use is you give out those little jigsaw pieces.
Yeah, I have some.
Encourages them to come back for a follow-up conversation.
Here they are.
And that's given them time, hasn't it, to kind of let the thoughts just settle in. Oh, right. So that's what they look like. I've often wondered, I can't quite see sometimes in the videos, just see them from a different
angle. I'll send you a pair. Give me your address afterwards and I'll send you some.
Awesome. Yeah. But that encourages ongoing debate and discussion.
Well, because I was going to the same location several times, now I'm not doing it anymore. I'm focused on the nonprofit that we've started and all sorts of other bigger tasks than doing street interviews. But I wanted to see what was happening afterwards. In fact, I think it may have been like Dan reaching out to me and saying, hey, your questions helped me process this. That was probably helpful for me to think, well, how could I find out what's happening in the interim? So I'll offer people to take one of those three pieces and then they can return for a subsequent talk. And then people started doing it, and that was really useful.
So you often have people come back for another conversation. How many out of 100 would come back with a Dan kind of epiphany, a radical change?
Not that many. I mean, that's a great question. 5 maybe. Like it was really rare. Yeah, I really didn't get a lot of feedback. And wasn't unusual to get emails back like, thanks for interviewing me. Can you talk to my friend next? Or where can I learn more about that technique? Or there was emails that said, like, you've really got me thinking, and some that said, I don't believe this anymore, but not to the extent that I would have liked to have seen. It makes me think that we probably need some sort of long-term study where we can be tracking interviewees over time, because I didn't consistently go to the same spot, and it was kind of a hit or miss thing if they would run into me. And it probably wasn't even until a third of the way through my interviewing that it dawned on me, oh, I should probably be giving people a card so that they can email me back. Like, I didn't really approach this with a lot of thought. I just sort of did it and stumbled forward.
Yeah, that's good though. That's an organic approach. That means as you're growing, you're learning, you're adding things that work and letting go of things that don't work. And can we say what Dan's doing now? What's what? I've just got a mental blank. Desperately Dan, is that what's the moniker he uses? Are we allowed to say?
I like that better. No, it's Objectively Dan.
Desperately Dan. Sorry, Dan, if you ever watch this. I watch a lot of Objectively Dan, not realizing it was this Dan.
Same fella. He's got a show called Truth Wanted on the ACA. He takes phone calls so people can call in with their supernatural claims, or he gets all sorts of calls about Bigfoot and aliens and that type of thing.
And he's very good. Like when I first watched the opening kind of few seconds of this, I thought, oh, here's a guy that's just, he's just going to never open his mind to this. And then all of a sudden I'm learning all these new things today. Watched the rest of it, saw him contact you, chat to you, and find out it's Objectively Dan podcasts. And I've listened to his stuff, and he's very good. Very good.
He's also a proponent of SE, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So for somebody to have been exposed to it in this way, randomly on the street, and somebody used SE to the point where he sees the value in the technique and is now actually sharing it with other people. As somebody who is a practitioner of SE and wants to promote it, like, I'm just so tickled to see that. I hope that is somewhat of the norm for people who encounter the approach, that they're not put off by it, but they're excited by it and they want to learn it.
Yeah. Talking about other people that are doing this kind of thing, and I think you do a lot of work with this person, and I don't know his last name actually, but he does Cordial Curiosity. Reed, I think is his
Oh yeah,
and
he's probably watching right now.
Oh, I hope so. Reed, love your work, and I would often watch, an Anthony video and then a Reed video, and did you know each other, like, as friends around the same time starting this, or did you come across each other down the track and realize you were both approaching a similar method, or had he met you and was following on your method?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you may have to interview him. I think he could make for a great interview. He's actually the president of SEI, Street Epistemology International. But to answer your question, if I'm not mistaken, I think he read Boghossian's book that started SE, and that was what I read. And then he stumbled across my videos, and then he invited me to speak at Atheist United in Los Angeles in 2015. Yeah. So that's when I met him, and we started keeping in touch. And I think maybe a year or so later, well, we started hanging out on this online platform called Blab, where we were practicing a crude version of SE with people who would just stumble by on this interactive online video chat thing called Blab. Yeah, it failed after like 2 years, this thing called Blab, which is really unfortunate because it was pretty cool. It was ahead of its time. Right. And then we kept in touch. And then I think I ended up, he started his own channel called Cordial Curiosity. And then I had a family in Los Angeles at the time. I met up with him and did some SE at his table. He does a sit-down version of SE where he's not comfortable, I think, flagging down strangers. Right. So he sets up this really colorful table with bright signage and topics now where people can select. It's obvious that you're sitting down and having an interview because there's microphones and cameras. And he brought his own style to it and developed it further. He's very creative.
Yeah, I really enjoy his interviews as well. Mm-hmm. He's got that gift like you where you just, when to pause. And sometimes he has that just little smile on his face where he knows that they're revealing more than they perhaps want to reveal. But it's ultimately really good for people to think about their own thoughts and to go, well, why the heck am I believing that, So yeah, I'd love to meet up with him. But wherever you look for, it's mainly his name, just Reed, and people talking in the comments just say Reed. And when he's introduced, he's often, I've seen a panel discussion now a lot recently. I've come across lots of panel discussions where there's you and him and a few other people that you bring in and have discussed the process and with together. And so I don't know, is he doing that on purpose? It's just a one name like Prince and Kylie and Elvis, is that?
I don't know. I'm not sure where you're getting that impression. I don't think it's an intentional thing. But you mentioned the review videos. We've been starting to do that almost on a weekly basis on the Street Epistemology YouTube channel, where we'll take a video from an SE discussion, and then myself and Reed from Cordial Curiosity or other YouTube channels, or even people who are thinking about doing a YouTube channel, but they're into SE, will join us and we'll play the video, pause it, and comment on it. Because I think that's the kind of instruction that I think people are interested in. They want to understand the mechanics of what's happening in the conversation.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm glad. I've only stumbled across that maybe in the last 2 months. I don't know how long you've been doing it. It's funny how you can stumble across things that are just tucked away in little pockets.
We're not the best at marketing. I'll be the first to say that. It's almost an afterthought, like, oh, we should probably tweet about this thing that we're doing. And it's like, we're actually like a minute from starting to do it. So we're really horrible at marketing. We need to improve in that regard.
One thing that Dan said in that post interview, and we've kind of covered what he said after, in that interview that you caught up with him later after he'd written to you and you have a chat with him. He says in that interview, that's just you and him, that one thing he found overwhelming and challenging was when he'd read the comments. So while there's a civil conversation going between you and the people you're chatting to, sometimes in the comments people can be quite nasty, and he found that quite confronting. And I think you even said to him you have been kind of thinking about whether it's useful to have the comments or not. I prefer having those comments and just trying to train people to kind of deal with it. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I absolutely would never get rid of the comments, because those have been invaluable for my own growth and teaching other people how to do SE. So those are never going away unless my interviewee says, can you turn off the comments? I think I've had to do that maybe once or something. Okay. It could be a good negotiation point if somebody is a little hesitant about their video appearing on YouTube, is you can blur their face or disable comments. But no, I think in that instance, when he disclosed that he was really put off by some of the comments, like, look at that dummy, that type of stuff. It caused me to eventually add a warning at the start of my video, like, please be respectful of the people who are being interviewed if you can, because it's more than likely they will read the comments. And the comments weren't really, in my view, they weren't really all that bad, to be honest. Like, I was really impressed, even from the very start. Like, man, people are being pretty respectful here. The comments seem to be quite in line with what we're trying to do with SE, like having this respectful approach. So, but I wasn't the interviewee reading them, so I was probably very biased in that regard. But I honestly, to this day, I think the comments are pretty good and helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And it's actually one of the challenges, because I'm incentivizing people to come back for multiple talks. I was intentionally holding off on releasing videos that I've had with people, because I thought, there's a good chance I'm going to run into that guy again. Right. And I don't want him to see the first 2 of our 4 conversations. I don't want him, I don't want to spend any time having to talk about the nasty comments. I wanted to really focus on the claim that we were exploring.
Yeah. On that, with the some of the negativity that does come across, do you have advice for people that are wanting to be more open about their non-belief but have fears for losing friends, family, standing in the community? Because that's a real thing for people. Like you've obviously organically grown and moved into where you are now, and have been relatively unscathed by it. When I interviewed Dan Barker and we were talking about his time on the Oprah Winfrey show, when it was, I think, Chicago AM or something like that in 1984, he almost seemed to relish the kind of controversy. But there are a lot of people out there that, they know that they're going to be in for a storm if they come out as a non-believer. So can you speak a bit to those people? They've been through maybe the street epistemology process with other people. They've read lots of things, watched lots of things. They feel like they've changed and shifted and want to be more true to themselves in public. Those people, have you got some words for them?
Yeah, that's a real tough spot to be, because you're trying to be your true self, but you recognize that that act could actually sever relationships with the loved ones in your life. Ultimately, it's a personal decision, and there's going to probably be a cost. So probably spend some time thinking about, am I willing to pay this cost? Do I want to live an authentic life?
Yeah.
Even if it means being disfellowshipped from my close circle of friends and family. It's very tough. I am reluctant to give specific advice other than maybe introducing people to a helpline called Recovering from Religion, because there's this concept called religious trauma syndrome, where these beliefs that you've been living with for so long, once you start realizing that you can't back them up to your own standard, you start also realizing how much harm those beliefs caused. And that could be a very traumatic thing. And there's also lingering fears as well, fears of eternal punishment. So I think it's very helpful to talk those through with somebody. And there's a wonderful organization called Recovering from Religion. I think their phone number, the US phone number is like 187, I doubt it, or something. But just go to recoveringfromreligion.com and you can live chat with people, trained agents.
Right.
Who can help you through that. In fact, I've become quite close with them, and I even do some intake interviews for their volunteers.
Wow.
I've been volunteering for them for the last 7 years or so, because I wanted to make sure that there was something to catch people who are on the receiving end of an SE talk. But interestingly, their agents are being exposed to SE, not to instill doubt or challenge a deeply held belief, but work with the people who are reaching out to them and asking them questions to figure out what they think their solution would be. And it's really wonderful. Like they'll actually use the SE approach to help reveal the best solution to get you through that difficult time that you're in. So I would highly recommend that organization.
That's great advice. It's like, that's something really great that we can actually put links out to people there's a place to go,
If you're looking to interview somebody from that group too, I'd be happy to get you in touch with them.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is 1 or 2 interviews a week, and I'm certainly not the only one in Australia doing this kind of thing. I'm new on the block as far as this platform, and so I'm excited to kind of be interviewing people and getting the word out there. And talking about that, a lot of people, like the SE is kind of permeating the whole non-believer community, and that's a great thing. And a lot of people watch the material and gain benefit, and they enjoy it. But there's a lot of us that want to learn the process, and I've been learning it from just watching. And I'll learn from, Matt Dillahunty, and I'll learn from Dan Barker debates, and I'll learn from your stuff. And but tell us a little bit about people like me who want to be learning it almost like a course. How can we and they go about that? What kind of things have you got going there that can almost offer people a training kind of opportunity?
Well, the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, what is the best way that you learn? A lot of people learn SE just by watching the videos. I would imagine if you've watched as many videos as you have, you've probably picked up on the technique yourself.
Yeah. And I love, I don't go onto the street, but sure. I would weekly have 2 or 3 conversations with people where I'm intentionally using the process.
Excellent. So that's one way, is just to watch the videos. Another way is just to go to some of the online communities that are there. The most active and perhaps best community at this moment in time is there's a Discord server. I think it's called Street Epistemology Discord server. And there's a link on the streetepistemology.com website under communities where you can go to that.
Okay.
that is a wonderful place to practice it. They have weekly practice. There are volunteers that go there just on their own time. They're not being paid to do it. They see the value in the approach and they want to help people learn it. So they'll do some role play or even explore real claims that people have. And then that there are others listening. And then after the conversation, they do a debrief. Okay, what did you think? This is what I thought you could have done better. You were really strong here. I'm curious why you didn't go in this direction, that type of stuff. And then we've been working for the last year to develop a self-directed course. And it's going to be massive. It's going to have probably 20 modules. Each module could be anywhere between 20 to 40 pages long. Great. We'll explain what street epistemology is, why you might want to use it, the overview of how to do it, some of the things to consider before, during, and after the talk, and really kind of walk people through and get them to the point where they understand it and feel comfortable attempting to use it.
Yeah. It struck me early on, and I think it might have been that one that you mentioned, Reed invited you to speak at, where you really did outline you had PowerPoint and everything, and you were really outlining the process. And it struck me then, I thought, this is going to be a course at university one day. This is good. This is so important.
That's our goal. That's what we want to do.
Because, there's a million resources out there to teach about, Noah and the Ark and Christian apologetics. And I think it really needs a counterbalance to that.
Well, we have the self-directed course. We want to have instructional materials created for the university level, high school level, middle school level. In my view, it's never too early to teach your kids how to question. If they think there's a monster under the bed, you can be using SE to explore with them how they determine that that's the case. And how could you be so sure? What might be a good way to test this process?
Yeah,
it's never too early, I think, to start introducing these concepts.
Oh, for sure. My girls we have discussions like that, and have done for, like I said, they're 7 and 8. And we've been discussing this kind of stuff since they were 4. And I'm amazed how much they do get at young ages. There's the whole process of evolution, though. There's not a lot of good kid kind of stuff that really explains it.
You jogged my memory earlier.
Yeah,
there's a few stuff. Rebecca Fox is a really good. She has a website called Rebecca on Paper, and it's probably more for teenagers than young kids.
Right.
And if you talked with Annie Laurie Gaylor, I would imagine. Did she recommend Bailey Harris?
Yes.
Okay, she's a young activist and author of a couple kids' books, so that would probably be a good entry point for middle schoolers, perhaps. Yeah.
So can you tell us, because I don't want to keep you too much longer, an hour's gone by already, but can you tell us what's exciting you at the moment? You talked about this course coming up that you're working on, the panel stuff you're doing with Reed and others. What's something that's really exciting you at the moment, another project that's on the boil? And how do you spend your days now too, if you're not out there on the street as much anymore?
Well, I'm doing interviews like this. I'm working on the course and trying to work with the board to put some processes in place to figure out how we're going to start the grant writing process and how we can attract more donors to support what we're doing, because what we're doing is starting to get expensive. And the days of just paying for this stuff out of our pockets it's not sustainable. So we really have to try to shift to a more supportive model. But what am I working on today?
Have you set up as a non-profit?
Yes.
It'd be great if you, maybe what would be really good if you sent me a few links of the things we've talked about by email, and I'll put them all in the post after. And that way, if people want to make a donation, they can click that button as well.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that. But what really excites me is that other people outside of the atheist community and the skeptic community are really starting to notice what we're doing.
Yes.
That SE is transitioning into a more mainstream technique without perhaps the stigma. And there really shouldn't be a stigma with non-belief, but there is in a lot of countries. And a lot of your viewers can probably relate to that. But I'm noticing more mainstream people noticing what we're doing. So, for example, there's an author and a podcaster named David McRaney of the You Are Not So Smart podcast. Excellent podcast. Right. He talks about all the things that our brains do. It's a great title. He's got a book by the same name, but he wrote a book. In fact, he came out to watch me do some SE about 2 years ago, and his book will be dropping in the summer of 2022. What's the name of the book? How Minds Change. And he's outlining all the different techniques that are being discovered independently that seem to all be centered around this technique, this idea of technique rebuttal, where we're, and I don't like the word rebuttal because it seems sort of antagonistic, but it's this idea of focusing on the technique a person used to come to their conclusion as opposed to rebutting their conclusion.
Yes.
This is fundamentally changing how we interact. And I think we need it more now than ever because of all the problems that we're facing.
Yes.
So what's happening now is I'm starting to make contact with authors and academicians. Is that the right word? People who are into academy and so forth, scientists, professionals, people who have businesses who are interested in starting consulting firms to teach people how to do SE and bring this to corporations. So that really excites me, that this is moving beyond just an activist tool to a human tool that we can use across the board.
One reason I kind of term myself as a free thinker is because I'm not trying to steer people. You know, there's different labels you can use in this kind of community. And for me, that works well because I am interested in the process of how people think and what they think and why they think and can they defend what they think. But with what you're saying there, it's such an important tool not to evangelize people to pop out as kind of atheists, but to use their own brain to come up with conclusions and a better way of thinking about why they believe what they believe. Even if they continue believing it, you know, they're free to think along whatever line they want to, but at least if you give them the tools of how to think and why they're thinking and how they're processing their claims and whatnot, I can just see that being beneficial for people right across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Why get wrapped up into one specific topic when you can use the approach on all the reasonings that you have and the reasonings of other people that you encounter? So yeah, we want to really try to broaden it out.
At an evolutionary level, why do you think we mammals struggle with critical thought and rational thinking? Like it's almost hardwired into us to not have a wake-up moment. Like a lot of people live their whole lives just having the apple not fall far from the tree. What is there a benefit, evolutionarily speaking, that keeps our brains closed?
I think so. And this is all just conjecture based on interviews that I've watched. You know, Hector Garcia comes to mind, an evolutionary biologist, and these ideas. But it's probably advantageous to conform to your tribe for safety. Mm-hmm. And if you raise your head too much and ask too many questions, you could potentially be booted from your tribe, as many of your followers can probably attest to, right? That's exactly what's happening. And that's a painful process. And when things were much more dangerous, that could be the end of your life, perhaps. So yeah, maybe we've evolved ourselves into complacency. But here's what's interesting is that I think the stigma of questioning and the stigma of doubt, at least I like to think that that's going away. That, I think, maybe if we can just destigmatize uncertainty, maybe that's the thing that can make it acceptable to raise your hand or your head to question and not get penalized. But the culture right now is you would get penalized if you spoke up against your own tribe.
Yeah.
And we're very unforgiving with people who change their minds.
Yeah. And I think too, a tribe produces more babies as well. So that might be another a genetic tactic, evolutionary tactic, to keep babies coming out. One of the things I love that Matt Dillahunty often says is that it's okay to say I don't know. I think too, another thing that I think people misunderstand about this method is that you're not making a claim and defending a non-belief. You're actually just saying, so far I haven't found anything convincing or compelling enough to make me believe in your God or a God. can you help define atheism along those lines? That's perhaps a bit better than people have misunderstood it to be.
There's two prevailing definitions. One I'm not so crazy about, which is a lack of a belief in a God. And in my view, the second you encounter a concept, an idea, you're forming a belief about it. Like the fact that you're recognizing the idea and you're storing it in your brain, I would call that a belief. And then perhaps alongside that belief, you're then also incorporating, and I've got my little brain here too.
Yes, I noticed that before.
I was just playing with it as we were speaking. But along with the belief that you've stored, I think you're also storing a feeling of certainty that it's true. So I'm comfortable saying, for the definition of atheism, a belief that there are no gods. And my reasoning for holding that belief to a certain degree of confidence is because when I look at all the evidence or reasons that are presented for thinking that the God is real, I don't find them convincing.
Yeah.
So that's how I would describe atheism. But there's a lot of pushback on that.
Right.
We tend to really spend a lot of time defending our own definitions of words like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I met some guy on TikTok. We're trying to arrange for a discussion. He's a theist, and I'm certain we're going to talk about the definition of atheism. I'm willing to use his definition for whatever words he brings up for exploring why he has his position about it. Mm-hmm. And I would ask him to do the same with me. It perturbs me, actually, when people think that I'm using a definition of a word and I haven't even been asked what my definition is.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very frustrating. And I try to not get frustrated, but I try to call attention to it and say, would you mind asking me what my definition is? Or, well, that isn't my definition. I'd like to share with you what my definition is so that we can use it going forward.
Yeah, in your interviews, you're constantly saying to people, is this what you're saying? How would you define that? But rarely do people do that back to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I want people to learn SE, because I think their engagements with me would be better. And I would be better as a result of it if they use the same approach with me.
Yeah.
And I understand that why they're not doing that, because they're not aware that there's a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to introduce them to SE. Whether or not they learn it or not is up to them, though.
That's right. That's right. We're free to make those choices and follow the path that we can cope with. And I think too, indoctrination is hugely powerful. Like in many ways, like we were talking about the tribe, we're indoctrinated by nature to be part of this tribe and to believe what we're told and not second guess anything that our elders tell us. And to disentangle yourself from that indoctrination is really difficult.
It's hard, but if you have other people out there who are forming new communities, like the atheist community or the free thinkers community or skeptic communities, those are viable options for a lot of people. And people sometimes need that. They need to see, okay, where would I go next if I did start to think about this view and get rid of it? And what are they like? Are they a bunch of jerks? Or are they nice, loving, empathetic people?
Yeah, yeah.
Which really kind of, I think, puts the pressure, not pressure, but a responsibility maybe on us. You know, we really should set the good example to make it easier for the people who are questioning to like, oh, I wouldn't really lose all that much if I got rid of this belief that I can't justify.
Yeah, that's right. By building community. And I've noticed in this small little budding Free Thinkers International community, there's a nice rapport going between people and people writing messages and backwards and forwards. And as we said off air, a few of us are wanting to organise a low key kind of conference, and we'd love you to come down under here and share. And we've been thinking is we could make it a little bit like we'll do Sydney and we'll do Brisbane and Melbourne and Adelaide and Perth as well. We'll kind of do all the towns.
That sounds amazing. I think it's a little bit difficult these days, isn't it, with COVID?
Yeah, we're going to have to wait till lockdown. It's giving us time to build up the community online. You asked earlier where around people are, and I had a quick look just before, and we've got people in Mexico and Spain and France and Europe, and so it's not just Australia, which surprised me. And I reckon we've got probably 20% women in the group as well. So I'm just letting it grow organically, and you've been sharing it, which is brilliant. That's going to really help us, build. Well, I appreciate you kind of offering such valuable time to our little tiny community. But I'm hopeful
sure.
that the template I've used on other platforms kind of works on this one, and it builds and grows.
Yeah, happy to be a part of it. Hopefully it can grow. And that'd be awesome if you can do a conference in Australia. I'd love to go there. I've never been there. I think I have some family in New Zealand and
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
I've got
an
lots of contacts.
acquaintance in Australia I'd love to meet
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got lots of contacts in New Zealand as well. I've lived in New Zealand and
Mm.
Australia backwards and forwards.
This reminds
Fiji.
me, there's a fellow who has a YouTube channel. It's called Live Well, and
Okay.
he's out of Australia.
Okay.
He has an SE YouTube channel, and he does interviews
Really?
there. Hmm.
Write that down.
Yeah, check him out. His name is Michael.
And it's Michael at Live Well.
Yeah, I think his
Right.
channel is. If you do a YouTube search for Live Well,
Yeah.
maybe Live Well and Street Epistemology, you more than likely find it. Let me try that. That should
And there
work.
was another one that Annie Laurie Gaylor mentioned. She did an interview today, I think, with this other Aussie guy, and he's got one called Culturally something. Cultural. Anyway, I'll try and find that one as well. But
You have to scroll down a little bit. It's livewell.coach. And he's actually been helping out quite a bit with the SE course.
oh, brilliant.
He's an
Oh.
expert with SE. Yeah. He's right in your backyard,
Yeah, it's great.
so
And
to
if
speak.
if we got together, 50 of us, and said, look, let's pay to bring out some guest speakers, and everyone can pay for their own hotel accommodation, and we'll pay for the conference hall. And I've been involved with a few big festivals for the last 30 years, and kind of learned a little bit about kind of running events and stuff. So we'll kind of apply all the skills and combine them together and make something happen.
That'd be phenomenal. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Would you see it more as an atheist event or a free thinkers event? How would you be
I'm,
positioning it?
I'm more inclined to promote it as free thinkers, with the knowledge that most people know what that means. Rational thinking, but we would. I'd be very keen to, by if we got people like yourself in the advertising, you're saying what you do, and that helps give people a sense of what the program's going to be like, what the conference is going to be like. So, and we'd be advertising through all those kind of networks. And I'm open to any advice as well.
I know nothing about running conferences. I've been to several and I've spoken at several, but I'd certainly help you promote it if you put something together.
Yeah, no, we will. As soon as lockdown's over and air travel becomes a kind of a positive thing again, which is happening here. I guess it's happening in America as well.
Yeah, you can, in fact, you can fly across the country, no problem. And I think you can even go to several countries now. Yeah. In fact, I think Australia I think starting this month, you can fly from Australia to the United States.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But it might be some cities. There might be one city that's that's not allowing that. I'm not exactly sure.
Hey, look, I'll let you get to your day, and I just want to thank you so much for being on the program. It's been really good to meet you and
same.
chat with you. I'd love to get you back when this course thing you're developing a bit more comes out. And yes, if you can plug away to other guests. I can see Reed is watching. So that's awesome.
I figured he might be. Yeah, he's pretty good about picking up on
Yeah.
if something is going on with SE. He's usually the first one to notice it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So is there anything you'd like to say to my little budding community? Any last thoughts, last words?
Oh, last thoughts. Well, probably just figure out the best style that works for you when you engage with others with whom you disagree. But just keep in mind the impact of how you go about doing it. Do you want to close the person down and make them never want to speak with you again? Or do you want to keep the dialogue open where they are willing to come back up and talk with you? Hopefully it's the latter. Usually people who leave religious views are very empathetic and loving, and they see humans, they see the humanity in humans, and ask yourself, maybe even ask yourself, what approach would you have wanted somebody to use with you? Would you have wanted somebody to hit you over the head with facts and ridicule, or use a more respectful, gentle approach to have you think about how you came to your conclusions and what your life would be like without it?
Yeah. My process was being hit over the head and abused and torn to shreds. And while I value that either way I kind of was able to come out into the clearing, I would have much preferred to have stumbled across this method earlier on. But like you say, people need to decide for themselves. Hey, we'll get you to stick around when I've stopped live streaming just to say thank you. And those that are watching, please thank our guest, Anthony Magnabosco. So good to have him on our show today. We'll see you again soon.